All right, before we get into this episode, I want to talk about something really quickly. And that is it's pretty related. It's about a very lonely experience that I had regarding this episode specifically. So, as you are going to figure out, this here is the Duchin family land. And I had the opportunity to interview pretty much 3 generations of the Duchin family. Unfortunately, as we were talking about loneliness, the footage of this episode that was shot on this camera right here was lost. It got corrupted, all the footage is gone, but there is a saving grace. So Dallas's wife, Shannon, and Phil's wife, also named Shannon, they took some clips and photos while we were filming. The audio is still saved. I'm gonna run with the audio. It is a podcast first. Obviously, my vision for this whole thing was always kind of like it needed to have video. So I'll creatively put the images together and hopefully you guys enjoy. But I just wanted to preface that before we get started. So here's to the loneliest episode of the 6 Feet Apart podcast.
Hey, I thought it was all over.
You want to have a seat?
But then I realized, like, Shy don't get me nowhere.
Welcome back to the 6 Feet Apart podcast, where we help everyday people feel heard. Today, I'm in a very unusual spot. The scenery has changed drastically, and it's a lot of fun for me because the everyday people that I'm talking to are people that are very, very close to me and that I grew up with since I was a kid. Dallas Duchin is a family friend of mine. He's been around my life since I was like 12, 13, something like that. And excitingly enough, you just bought yourself some land. Is that what we're on right now?
That is where we are. Yes. Very exciting. Started from absolutely nothing, just pure raw land. And come in and you have to make trails and get yourself started. It's been a life-changing adventure, for sure.
I bet. So how big is the land that we're on right now?
About 10 acres. Technically 9.9 acres.
Holy fuck.
We're about 2.5 hours out of the city, so was a rare property to find. We got incredibly lucky. Bought it through COVID when it was just crazy. Initially, we wanted to buy a house, so we were saving before COVID came. We wanted to buy a house. That was the goal. COVID hit, and the market just drastically changed. And, writing on the wall, interest rates, things are going to get tough. If we get a house and then everything changes, that house becomes far more expensive as life gets harder. Yeah. So we're like, let's do something that we won't lose. So we decided we're going to purchase some property. That way we own it and we don't have payment and we can't lose it. And so we found some raw land. That was a huge mission, trying to find property in the first place, because at the time something would go up and within 24 hours it was sold. So we had bought a piece of property in Manitoulin Island. It was 3 acres, a sight unseen, and my wife didn't like that. So we drove all the way out there, and we faced a beaver dam. We walked through knee-high water because we had to see it. There was 3 or 4 different directions that you could get to the property. I've got a 4x4 truck, and I couldn't get in. So we were like heartbroken. We phoned the realtor and everything. The seller hadn't signed the paperwork. If they wanted to, they could have locked us in the contract and said too bad. But they were kind and they said, okay, no problem, because the market was so good. They didn't care. And then the very next day, we found this property. Yeah. Came here and it was just, we fell in love.
From my understanding, you've been working on it for the last 2 years, yeah?
Mid to late November will be the official 2 years.
That's awesome.
So we're coming up on it.
And before 2 years have ended, you've even built yourself a little shack.
Yeah, got a small bunkie, which is awesome.
It is actually really awesome. Like the fact that it doesn't look like a shack. It looks like a modern designed like mini home thing.
Yeah, so I did the burnt wood, and inside also has the same burnt wood look. So it's like my take on a modern log cabin. So
hell yeah.
Inside is like kind of like a log cabin, but modern style with white walls, transitioning with burnt pieces of wood. The entire thing is salvaged material. I do construction, I salvage material. This beautiful thing is complete on the interior. I just have some finalizing work to do, finishing work, and when I'm said and done complete, I'll be less than $3,000 into this build.
Wow. The story that I feel right now is that we're no longer surviving, we're thriving.
Every single piece of wood and everything that's come in here has come in on my back. We carry everything in. Every piece of garbage that's created is carried back out.
I'm going to get into some deep stuff here. Are you down?
Absolutely.
Dallas, have you ever felt lonely?
Yeah. Who doesn't?
Do you feel lonely when you're out here alone, like on the land working?
No. And the truth is because I've always got my dog. Even when I'm alone, I have my dog. It makes me feel safe. But there's times in my life where I think, like most people, I feel alone even when I'm surrounded by people. In a sea of people, surrounded by people who love me, and you could feel utterly alone. Those moments come in life.
Can you describe what that feeling of loneliness is?
It's dark. Probably the easiest way to describe it. It's dark because you're surrounded by people you love, who love you, and still you're alone.
Darkness is a good way of describing it, but there's like a level of anxiety.
Yeah.
I can kind of picture it. If you and I were out in the wilderness and we saw a tiger, if you're alone, that threat, like you're dead.
That's a tremendous, deep fear. Yeah. Like we don't have tigers here, obviously, but come across a bear. This is black bear country. Yeah. Have one of those stroll past your campsite. That's going to be a terrifying moment. I'm sure you're going to feel utterly alone in that moment.
Totally. And now we live in this weird civilization and society where like you have this anxiety of loneliness, which is probably deep rooted from, innate nature. We're social beings. When you're born, you're like a squishy little meat sack. You can't do jack shit, and you need a village. It takes a village to raise a child. But if you're alone, you're fucked. And that feeling, it's like there's always a tiger. That darkness to me feels like I'm in danger, but I can't see the danger. And then the loneliness that you're describing when you're around people, and I think it's even amplified now because we're so connected with the world, you feel like a cast out. You're surrounded by people, but alone. I think this is a new problem.
I don't know. I think that loneliness is easily linked to depression, and all of that, it's a conversation in your head. And then you get to a point, life just beats you down sometimes, and I got to this point where things got hard and the conversation inside changed.
And you're like, I'm a fucking loser.
Absolutely. Why isn't things working out for me? Why did this happen? Why does that happen? The conversation that happens in your mind is threefold. It's to yourself, with yourself, and about yourself. Everything in life is polarity. Love is the same thing. Love and hate is the same. It's the same emotion, different side of the spectrum. That's every aspect of life, and the conversation within you is the same when it comes to that to yourself, because it can be a negative coach, and the conversation with yourself is your friend or not your friend. Yeah. Right? Like, so it's all perspective. Overall, if you think mostly negative, you're going to have like this negative feeling, your negative ball of energy. You have two wolves inside you, an evil wolf and a good wolf. Which wolf is stronger? The one you feed. And so the more you think, I'm an idiot, I'm stupid, the deeper the rut gets, the harder it is to step out of that rut, to create, I'm awesome, I'm amazing.
I think if you're out there and you feel alone and you're listening to this podcast right now and you're genuinely alone, like out in the middle of nowhere like us, and you've just somehow got an internet connection, I think that's a different story. But even with the internet connection, I feel that you can be connected, you can find community, you can do anything. Do you have any pieces of advice for anyone out there that might be struggling with loneliness?
Right off the bat, I would say think about the fact that that conversation in your head is negative. And try your best to change that conversation. So one day randomly I'm driving in my car, me and a guy, one of us cut each other off and somebody honked. That's it, we come up to a red light. But in my head, I play out this whole scenario where he starts yelling at me and I'm yelling at him, fuck you, and one of us is out of our car, and none of this is happening. But I'm full on, I've got the full mental image like this is going on.
You're ready for it.
Exactly, and it's like there's the negativity. Why am I playing out an imaginary negative scene? Why wasn't automatically the mental image that I saw me going, oh shit, sorry my friend, and him going, no problem, and me jumping out going, here's a $5 Timmy's card, sorry bud, have a great day. Why wasn't that the internal story or the imaginative story? It's not until you recognize it within yourself that you can kind of start to change it. You change that conversation. Like, it was like an epiphany for me. That moment changed my journey of self-discovery and helped me start to pull out. It pulled me out of depression.
There's something interesting about the way that you described it. I couldn't help but feel that if you feel lonely out there, there's probably a reason for it, and the negativity probably gets louder and louder and louder and louder because you're ignoring yourself. Like, you need to have a relationship with you. Do you think that the feeling of loneliness and depression is the same feeling as being a burden? Have you ever felt like you're a burden on anybody in your life?
When I was going through depression, absolutely. That was one of the feelings that come in. It links in. It's like, I'm not good enough. So you feel like a burden to the people around you. You're not doing enough. Why is like my luck so bad, or whatever the thing is that you're playing in your head? And it's like, absolutely, that's connected.
Do you think that the burden syndrome is something that's new, or is this something that's always been around?
100% males, I think, have this innate need to support and produce. And women have more of a need to nurture. And I think even though those feelings and those things are very different, we both, male and female, feel that same way from different perspectives, even though we can't always see it, but it's the same struggle. Lack of purpose is, I think, humanity's biggest problem. Although the internet and this amazing digital age has changed humanity so amazingly, it's also hurting us because our technology is moving way faster than us biologically to keep up with this stuff. So we're connected to the entire world through this little thing, but we're not actually engaging in the world anymore. Even though I'm an artist and I learned to identify as an artist, that was such a big part of who I was, to no longer be a roofer. And I'm not just a roofer, like I had owned my own business, so I'm at the top of my field. And to step out of that...
You're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. But now to step out of something like that I've done my whole life into another field, well, now I'm at the bottom of the field. You got to work your way up. The money's not the same, so you're not providing the way I was. The job I did gave me so much freedom and pride. I'm helping people. We fix your roof. Most people don't look up until it's time to get a roof done. You don't even think about it.
Hell nah.
But that
that thought has never crossed my mind, not once, 27 years.
99% of people, that's how it is. But the reality is that thing up there is protecting you and all of your worldly possessions.
Is there anything that's been on your mind that's been weighing down on you that you feel like you haven't been able to share with anybody?
I'm in a pretty good place in life. I'm pretty happy. I mean, life is still a difficult struggle. I'm back into roofing. Like, life got really hard. COVID has devastated countless families.
But you have a trade, you have a skill that you can fall back on, which is admirable.
It is a blessing. Because the job is so hard, it's a curse. Because, like, my fallback is something that causes me great pain. But mentally, I'm in a very good place. I have nothing but gratitude.
That's awesome. I'm so fucking happy to hear that.
Express.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you. Now, you know our mission is to help everyday people feel heard and famous. I want to know, Dallas, is there anything that you want to tell the world that you're working on right now?
Well, I'm an artist, as well as being a roofer. When my daughter was young, she went through hip dysplasia, put in some body cast. That's part of where I found Bob Proctor. And it helped me because that was, at the time, the most difficult thing I had ever been through, surgeries from my young daughter. Then I started to paint because she was in a body cast, so how do you bring the world to her was my mission. Started to paint, and now I'm an artist. I identify as an artist. I've been painting for over a decade. I have a mission to donate $1 million to Sick Kids Hospital through the sale of a single painting. So that's my goal in life. It's a mission that I'm on. How and when I'll accomplish it, I don't know, and I'm okay with that.
But you're manifesting it every day.
But that's the goal. I've got over 200 pieces created. I do work on driftwood. The type of work I do is I paint paradigms. So I'll do an abstract painting, and that is the emotion, that's the decision. I put a full painting down, and then I'll cover it up. And then I'll do another painting, and then I'll cover it up. These are life experiences. This is the layers of your life. And then I will sand through that. And so to me, it's like if it was your aura, that's all moving. And so when I do a painting and it's done, it's like I've taken a screenshot of one moment in a paradigm. And like the next month, that paradigm could be very shifted, different colors, different shapes. So that's what I paint. And I paint that on canvas. I paint it on driftwood. I paint it on rock. It's a feeling. You're supposed to look at it and enjoy it or hate it, put you into deep thought or just gratitude, love, joy, just make you smile. It's supposed to create an emotion within you. So like that's the ultimate goal.
If people are interested in finding your art, where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram, although I don't post there as much, but I'm anywhere. If you look up, if you hashtag DStarID, DSTARID,
you'll find him. DStarID. Dallas, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. And before you go, I need you to sign the table. If you guys don't know, the reason that we get everyone to sign the table is that once the table is fully covered in names, we will be donating this table out or giving it away. I'm not entirely sure yet. But once the table is full, it will conclude the first season of the 6 Feet Apart podcast. So if you guys do find the table out here, you want to sit down, you want to be a part of this movement, this mission, Make sure to have a seat. It's the only way that you can sign the table.
Get on the podcast.
Get on the podcast. Next guest on the Duchin edition of the 6 Feet Apart podcast is my first real friend ever, Dustin. Dustin Duchin. We used to make videos together, like stupid little YouTube videos, but there's something odd about this. Like, I feel like it's a little different. And also, we haven't spoken in a very long time.
I met you when I was still in middle school.
I was in grade 3, you were in grade 5, I think.
Yeah.
We lived in the same building, and Dustin was playing soccer in the park in front of the building, and I came and I was a fucking asshole about it or something, and then we became best friends. But we played soccer, I came to your place, and ever since then, yeah, we just like hung out. So Dustin, I want to know, like, when was the last time that you felt lonely?
I think it's something that comes and goes quite often for me. I feel like it's something that I know is not really true. I know there's people around me. I know there's things that I have, but the lonely feeling is something that is always there.
The feeling is real, but like you can't associate it to anything because you're surrounded by people.
Yeah, it feels unnatural, like I shouldn't feel like that. I think most of the reason is because of my ADHD. I'm always thinking. Even though I'm here in the present, my mind keeps going and doesn't stop and wants to do whatever it's thinking about. So when I get caught up in that and I realize I need to focus on what I'm in now, it starts to affect me. And I'm like, I start to jitter, stutter, can't get my words out right. I'm get all shaky, kind of like right now. My mind is flowing, trying to think of what I should say when I know what I do want to say, and it just won't hold on to it.
So yeah, so I'm getting a pattern of should and shouldn't. Where do you think that stems from? Is there like a voice in you that's telling you that you're doing something wrong?
For me, I always looked at it as like it's what you should and shouldn't do. There's things that you do and things that you don't do. Sometimes, though, the curiosity takes too much of a hold, and I've noticed that people will like to push buttons. They like to figure out what they can and can't get away with.
That is my personality trait to a T, and I do that with myself. I'm like the ultimate devil's advocate. I'm like, hey, what can I get away with me? How long can I go without sleeping? How long can I go without eating? How long can I go without this? You don't need that. You don't need this. You don't need that. That's like a David Goggins thing. Are you familiar with David Goggins? Stay hard. Yeah.
I find him very inspiring.
Me too.
I remember when I watched this stuff, I felt like I had a new outlook on things. I'm like, okay, so like pain happens and you just got to deal with it.
Yeah, apparently the man ran a marathon with a completely destroyed foot and ankle, and it was like bleeding out of his shoe, and he just kept fucking going, and then they had to like, he was hospitalized after he finished, but he did it. He like pushed through. He just kept fucking going. He's a psychopath.
There's definitely times where I can think of I've channeled energy like that in school, being pushed certain ways. They're like, oh, I bet you can't run around like the whole time. I'm like, I'll show you. I can full sprint this whole thing, and I'm really determined. I'm not going to stop.
I feel like that's a trait that Dustin and that's what made us really good friends. It was never a negative push. There was like a deep-rooted curiosity, and then we would just like follow it. We would just go. Like, it doesn't matter what the hell it was. We would just do it.
Mostly like a want to prove that you can do it too. You want to feel that want to expand further into it.
I don't know about you, but like me personally, back to the lonely thing, I had always found a lot of joy and like fulfillment in sharing those experiences. If I was able to accomplish a feat, and then it was like you look over and you're like, yo, did you see that? And it's like, holy fuck, we just did that. That to me has always been where life is like, it's golden. Those are the nuggets in my life. If I accomplish something on my own, it's dope. I give myself a pat on the back. I'm fucking awesome. But it's a little different because I feel like when you share an experience with someone, it's like now you and I, we will go to our deathbeds, and I know that was real. I feel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I feel kind of like a weight from your aura. Like empathetically, I feel a weight. And I've been feeling a lot of weight in a lot of people, and I've been asking them this question recently, but is there anything that's been weighing down on your mind recently that you feel like you haven't been able to share, or you haven't been able to like feel received in that you would like to share now?
I don't think the weight that is on me is something that's not something that I'm not sharing. I think it's more in a line of I'm not expressing my inner self the way I think I should be.
Okay, expand on that. I'm interested.
I find I pull away from wanting to express how I really feel from time to time. A lot of the times I find I just mirror or mimic the situation I'm in to blend in with the feel. I don't think it's necessarily like I'm disconnected from it,
but the thought behind it is that I like to feel that I'm connected with that person. So expressing the same thing that they're expressing or the feeling at the time feels right to me. I feel like it's more like a struggle with like the wants and needs in your life. Like you think about the things you want, the things you need. And you want to get something out of a situation, and there's stuff you need out of a situation.
Can you give me like an explicit example of a scenario like that?
So let's say you're dealing with like someone you love. You want to have the good reaction from them, the loving reaction. To touch on what my brother was talking about before, the polarity thing. Everyone always wants to give what they want to offer. When I become overly aware of that, I only want to give this of me and I want to hold this back. I feel like that's not right.
What do you find that you're typically holding back? Is there like a pattern that you're holding back on? Because I feel the same way, by the way. I feel like the thing that I always hold back on, just to maybe it might help share, is anger. I feel like I have a demon in me. I can be vicious. I can be like very vicious. And it's odd because you guys see me here on the podcast and I'm very nice and I'm personable and I help people open up. But there's a dark side to me. Like I can be vicious because I know what hurts. So I'm always reluctant to share my anger. I feel like I'm not allowed to be mad. But what about you? Do you resonate with that?
I do. It's something that I feel a lot. It's not just an anger to me. It's more than anger. I think a lot of it has to do with like nature versus nurture. People say that like, oh, is it nature that develops you or is it the nurture? And it's both. Like your environment and the way people interact around you make a big change on you.
It's like treat others how you want to be treated type situation.
Yeah.
Then do you find that there's like an unfairness in the world because you're surrounded by people that are allowed to express the things that you hold back?
There's a bit of that feeling, but I feel also admiration for people that can express themselves fully, that aren't afraid to go that extra mile.
Oh, yeah, no, totally. I feel the admiration for them, but for myself, there's like an injustice. It's like, why can this person be a fully actualized human and I have to suffer by like toning that part of me down? It's like I'm not allowed to be who I am to my fullest and I watch other people do that.
I feel like it's the expectation of the environment around you.
Is there anything that you're working on right now that you want the world to know about?
There are things that I kind of want to do that I feel like I've been holding back on.
What are some of those things?
I feel like I should get more into the things that I wanted to do than the things that I feel like I needed to do.
What are some of the things that you always wanted to do?
Experience more with the people that I want to be around. I can tell like there's a lot of experiences that you've gone through and a lot of growing and stuff. A lot that you've done. And I think that's awesome.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for being on.
You're welcome.
Can you tell the people your name?
My name is Philip.
Philip, have you ever been lonely before?
I've actually felt lonely and everything like that after I broke up with my baby mother. For 8 years I was lonely. But then I found life again. I found my wife. We had beautiful son, beautiful daughter, everything like that. And my life has been very good. Very, very, very good. Like it's changed everything.
What was it like when you were kind of in the loneliness?
Oh, it was very dark. Like I didn't trust myself around nobody. Like I kept to myself. Like I'm not particularly that kind of person or anything like that, right? But like, yeah, I kept to myself and I was just not associated with anybody or anything like that.
That's so odd to hear. I feel like Phil is the most social, like one of the most social people I've known in my life.
No, I am a social butterfly.
Like even last night we were going by the campfire. He looks at me. He's like, "Stev, you're so quiet, man. Like you're never quiet." And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm quiet all the time." He's like, "No, you're not." he like called me out.
Yeah, for sure.
You said that you didn't trust yourself around people. What does that mean? Like, what was stopping you from wanting to be around other people?
It was just feeling kind of didn't like have a hold of myself or anything like that. So I just didn't know how I would react around new people, right? So I just kept to myself and just stuck to what I knew. I kept roofing and everything like that, and I met this amazing woman. She brightened up my life. I'm so thankful to have her. She's my world. She's my rock. She's everything.
That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that for you, man. What is it about your relationship that's really like brought this side out of you?
When everybody says that, you know, you have your better half, right? Well, she is the definition of my better half. We pick each other up when we fall down or anything like that. We're just very compatible with everybody, and like even each other, we knew about the potential that we had with each other. We're lifelong partners.
What's a good example that has kind of painted that for you? Like I want everyone out there to know, like, some good examples of a relationship that can help someone that's in a rut?
There's a lot of sayings and everything like that. You have to kiss a bunch of frogs to find out what your first prince is, right? So ladies out there, my advice to you would be to just like keep trying, keep your head up. Your king would come along with you and your prince will be there for you to sweep you off your feet.
What were some of the like unpredictable actions that you were afraid that you might commit around strangers? Were you like an aggressive person? Were you violent?
No, I wasn't really violent.
I don't get that from you.
Or anything like that. It was just that back then I was actually kind of afraid of like what people would think of me and everything, like because I would just judge myself all the time. Right?
Interesting.
Yeah, so like I would be afraid of what people would.
You were judging yourself? Look at this man. You fucking kidding me? Come on.
Thanks, brother. Thanks. I just didn't judge my inner soul. Like everything about my inner soul and everything was just really wrong. I've never been in a jail or anything like that. 38 years old, never been in jail, nothing like that. And I plan on keeping it that way. Like,
I was just curious because personally speaking, if I'm like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to react in a situation and I'm anxious about it, for me, personally speaking, it's because I feel like I'm going to be some sort of asshole. Like I'm trying to protect the people that I'm interacting with versus myself. It's about me because I don't want to face the consequence of being an asshole, but for the most part, I'm trying to protect other people where I'm like, if I'm in a really shit mood, I don't want to be around people because I'm going to be a dick and like I'm going to be short and I'm not going to be a listener, and that's not who I am. That's not the kind of life that I want to be projecting out into the world. That's why I asked that question. I was curious to know like if it was more of a aggressive thought, but it's interesting that you said that you were just kind of shy, like you didn't know who you were and you were worried about being judged.
That's right. Like back when I was about 14, 15 years old, I lost my grandmother. She was the world to me.
Tell me a little bit about her. What's her name?
Well, she's kind of a soft topic. She's my best friend. We did everything, absolutely everything together. Every time that she needed help, I was always there to help her out. She's like my love. Like, I love you, Grandma. It's a very touchy feeling for me. Like, I'm about to cry, but you know, yeah, she's my best friend. She's everything. She's my world. Like, we are very, very close. Before then, she told me never ever change your ways or anything like that. Listen to your inner heart, right? Your inner heart. Trust your inner self, right? And when you trust your inner self like that and you don't change yourself like that, right? It doesn't matter if nobody likes you, that one person will come along and they will absolutely love the way you are. When you are around other people and you're influenced by other people, then you start to change yourself, right? Well, that's where you go wrong, right? And that's where your life starts to head down a path you don't want it to, right? So that's the whole thing, and with the key of my grandmother, and she told me that, never ever change yourself, because then it would be hard to trust people otherwise. And just like I said, even still to this day, I keep to myself, but if my grandmother was still alive, she would be absolutely so proud of me to this day.
Hell yeah. I have two more questions for you. This podcast, the mission is all about helping everyday people feel heard and potentially famous. So, is there anything you're working on, Phil, that you want the world to know?
Not necessarily.
Nothing.
I don't really have many things happening in life right now other than my beautiful family that I have, right? But other than that, like, no, not really. Like, I'm not really working on anything new or anything like that. I want to get my son into some sort of sports, and maybe we can go that way. I'm happy the way that I am. I'm going to go from there.
That's awesome. Do you have any questions for me, Phil?
Just like I asked you last night, you said that, like, you know, you made a company and everything like that, and, like, very, very proud of you, like, very, very proud. It must be very hard to be around different kind of people and different influences and everything like that and still keep to yourself. My question is, like, how did you do it?
Ooh, that's a great question. The way that I was able to be myself was I stuck to a foundation. So my dad gave me a quote when I was about like 8 or 9 years old, and he said, we were bickering and arguing about something, and I was like, Dad, you have to do this, and Dad, you have to do that. And he looked at me in my eyes and he said, son, the only thing in life that I have to do is die, and everything else is a choice. And it shut me up. Because I was like, no, you have to do this. And he was like, no, I don't. So I went to bed and I woke up the next day. And because I have a debater mind, I was like, okay, what do you have to do? Because I'm going to go to my dad. I'm going to tell him. I'm going to be like, Dad, I found it. You have to do this. And I couldn't find it. He was right. He was right to the core. It's like I was able to argue every point except the death one. Yeah. And I think, honestly, Phil, in my life, anytime that my life got hard or I was surrounded by people that made me feel like I was being pulled away from who I really am. I just made a choice to be with me and not with them. And I did find a lot of comfort in isolation and comfort in meeting new people and like going and interacting with strangers. I just found solace in the idea that if I'm not enjoying my experience with this person, there will be another person, or I will just enjoy an experience with myself, and that's going to be okay. And I just chose that every time. Phil, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you sitting down. Thank you.
No problem.
What's your name?
Robert
Duchin.
Duchin.
We had a cool experience here. We're able to interview 3 generations of the Duchin family, and it all starts here with Rob. Rob, I want to know, when was the last time that you felt alone?
The first night in my cabin.
When was that?
A year ago, or half a year ago.
Nice. Did you enjoy the loneliness, or was it kind of heavy?
It was cool, like adrenaline running. Dal was on the hill. Colt was on the hill. I was fine.
Oh, so you weren't like alone,
Well, no,
but you felt it. What does loneliness feel like for you?
I have no clue.
You don't have like a...
Never alone.
Oh, interesting. Who do you have with you at all times?
Oh, mother, Dustin, Nick, Caitlin. I am never alone. I'm alone in my car working, that's it.
That's a beautiful way to see the world. I'm assuming that like having that sort of connection, was it always that connection, like since they were born or since you met with them, or is this just something that's kind of been instilled with you?
That way I've never been alone. I can't think of a night where I was by myself.
Is that by design? Did you do that on purpose?
It's just the way life rolls for me. There's always family around.
Family man.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. Have you ever felt like a burden on the family?
Oh, sure, in times, early years. Oh, yeah, of course. Now, who wouldn't? You're responsible for everything.
When you were in that situation, how did you get yourself out of it?
Whenever I fuck up, it's just back to work. Work straightens everything out.
That's like a formula that you trust in your head. It's like you just get to work and everything will kind of fall into place.
When things are fucked up, you just go to work harder.
I love that.
More money, everything's easier.
That makes sense. You're roofing? That's where you started work? Did you always do roofing?
Carpenter.
Carpenter. Okay. What got you into carpentry?
I was a night manager in a restaurant, sweating in a hot kitchen all the frickin' time. And my friends working in construction had 3 times the money I did. So I just quit and went and found a construction job. Took an apprenticeship, and the rest is history.
What was it like? Did you always work under companies, or did you ever run your own?
For a few years, I did my own thing, but I'm shit at sales. I can get the job done. I can make anyone happy. But get their money out of their pocket, it's not my talent.
Did you always feel like there was a lot of rejection?
You have to be a bit of a shyster to be a salesman. To sell work, you got to be greedy and a bit of a shyster, which I can't.
I feel most people that fall into that, it's because they love the work. You're like, I can do the work. I know I can do the work. So
I can do the sales too, but I'm not going to put the energy into the sales as what I can do in the work.
yeah, and when you're in a situation with someone who's good at negotiating or they have the leverage because they have the money, you are like, okay, I will bend or I'll fall. It's like, I'm quoted $2,000 for this job, and they're like, oh, can you do it for $1,000? You're like, all right.
Yeah, and where the people I work for will get 3,000.
That makes sense. Okay, so you found your place. You were like, I'm a executor. I'm not going to be the sales guy.
I'm good at getting the job done, not doing the sales.
I think it takes a lot to recognize that and to accept it and be like, okay, this is my lane. I'm going to stick in it. My dad was a carpenter and a contractor. I remember my dad telling me stories where he was missing vice grips and he was just like using his fucking hands. He's like, I'm just going to hold this shit together and just start drilling.
Oh, I've got horror stories from the beginning to end.
One of my partners in my business, his dad owns quite a large chain, and he was always telling me you shouldn't mix business and family, because when you mix business and family, things get way out of control. Like there's just so many things you have to think about, and then generationally, like it's one thing to do it with your immediate family, but then the offspring of those family, and then like trying to divide up the business and like how that all is going to work out.
Families that have it together do amazing things.
Yeah.
Amazing companies. More hands, the easier the work. That's why there's such thing as big farms and big families on big farms. More hands make easy work.
But I've heard that it crumbles. Like there's a point where it will kind of fall because...
Yeah, but the families that get it together, that have it, they're the winners. The ones that keep trying, they need to keep trying.
That makes sense. You either do it with the family that you were born with or the one that you make, right?
Well, that's right. It comes with both, right? It goes hand in hand.
Rob, is there anything that you're working on right now that you would want the world to know about?
Fuck no.
Keeping to yourself, eh?
Yes. I've got my little piece of heaven, and that's enough for me. I'm good. The world don't need to know it.
Has there ever been anything on your mind that you felt like you weren't able to share?
Not today.
Do you have any questions for me, Rob?
No.
Well, I appreciate your time. Before you leave, I would love it if you can sign the table.
Well, I do have something to say to you.
Okay.
Because I know your parents, and I think you turned out amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And now we have 3 generations of the Duchin family signed on the 6 Feet Apart podcast. I think that is awesome. Like, how many people can say that they've talked to 3 generations of a single family in a day? Like, that's like really cool. I think that's cool.
Something for them to look back on in the future.
Totally. Rob, thank you so much for your time.
All right.
I appreciate it. Cheers.
Boom.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see the full uncut versions of all of the episodes, you can always check them out on Patreon at 6 Feet Apart Podcast.
I hate it here.